Are you just like?
I mean, I can.
Yeah.
If the only way I could give you a hint is to just tell you, also your shoes untied, so be careful. Make sure you put it in the basket. Get cured.
I think I know them. Oh shoot, we have a mini quiz today. No, we don't.
I guess he moved it to Friday.
Wait, what?
I think he moved it to Friday. I was.
What was that? Did you get number 129? I can't do anymore. It's actually like so hard.
Yeah, I literally didn't know anything.
I couldn't do it! Pretend.
Okay,
Oh my
that
god.
was like find the limit from the
If I
integral
had
of
one-
tangent. That was literally so impossible.
We have another mini quiz. Like, I don't
Why am I
know.
getting this much whenever we started? I was
I don't know what I'm doing.
starting to be done.
I'm
Not
so
doing
no,
this.
I'm not doing homework. I'm so confused. I don't want to. No, I'm like completely thinking about it. See what?
Like, as long as I
Oh, you'll definitely pass. If I pass, you'll. We have another mini quiz. For the next class, yes. Yes. Okay, so I literally think I left my laptop. No, I can't tonight. I have rehearsal until like 7. I'm just gonna do after 7 tonight. She doesn't get I think she actually likes it. Does my mom just charge you? I don't know. I don't know if she even does.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess
think it was her
That sounds like a good
She likes it.
Oh, excuse me, turning my
What am I supposed to do with this?
Well, they told us to give it to you. I don't know. I was supposed to turn it in today. Use the library.
Oh yeah, because we gotta get stamps.
Yeah.
What if I don't put it in today?
Well, I don't know.
And we won't graduate.
It's not my problem anymore. Now that I gave it to you.
You don't have to turn this in.
Yeah, because
Okay, so not yesterday, Tuesday, I had said I would start off class with the mini quiz today, but I'm actually going to pivot on that and do something slightly different and have you do one tomorrow instead. So I'll talk about why once we get to that, but let me get attendance put in. Some school business. Ashley. Okay, so I shared a few answers with you guys on 129, which was topics that will be on the AP Exam 1. I had like, I don't know, 5 or 6 questions I asked you to do, and I think I had a mistake on 2 of them because, I don't know, I was distracted or whatever when I worked them, so I feel like that could have altered your studying for that, so I just didn't want you to run any risk of being penalized because I shared 2 wrong answers with you. So part of what I'm going to do today is I will share the correct answers with you. So if you would get out 129 real quick, that's the one that you should have looked over. Let me make sure that you have the correct answers so that you can adjust accordingly. And then tomorrow my plan is I'll give you 1 question from these question types, and I'll give you 1 question from topics that will be on the AP Exam 2 that we will do part of class today. Okay, so my first mistake was the numbering is kind of weird, but this one, it says number 2. I had told you D, but it's actually C. D is almost correct if it had had a negative out front, which is why I saw it, moved on too quickly. Again, sometimes I do this stuff during advisory, so depending on how much is going on. So I had originally said D, but it actually should be C. So if you had trouble getting that, then that was my fault. And then the other one was one we did together, which I guess shouldn't have messed you up too much. But on this question, this one, I did the left-hand Riemann sum, which calculated the change in velocity, but I didn't take into account that it started off at 11 to begin with. So I had told you the answer to that was B, but it actually should be E. And again, just in the rare case, and you're studying that, it messed you up. I did not want you to miss points on a mini quiz for it. Yes, Claire.
On number 4 on the very front page, why would that be C and not D?
I do have D. Did I had D.
What was the answer for 2 on the front page?
Which 2?
Oh, the top 2.
That. I shared these with y'all last time, right?
Yeah, I just didn't. Well, our mini quiz, we were like things we were together too, or is it just the ones that we do on our own?
It's going to be the same topics. So you might have one question that's a differential equation. You might have one that's using the definition of a derivative, or it might be using trig derivatives, or it might be Riemann sums, trapezoidal sums.
So it's just a topic.
It's a topic. It's not the exact same questions. You need to know the topics. AP exam is barely more than a week away. So if y'all feel uncomfortable with any of those, that's why you got to start studying it. Okay, so back to our agenda here. I'll remind you of those changes. But I've been going over this quick little slideshow, and it's going to get quicker each time. But AP pass rate for Fayetteville High School. So just so you can see that it is not an automatic. If you are not putting in some study effort, you should not assume that you are going to pass. You have to study, and you need to try your best on the test. Then I shared the worldwide pass rates so that you can see it's pretty consistent. If it's a hard test, they will adjust the score. If it's an easy test, they're going to expect more. Either way, you need to do the best you can. Some of the tips I got from the guy in a workshop a couple years ago: half the people got a 2, would have had a 3 if they just got 3 more questions right. 11 more points to go from a 2 to a 4. Anything you do on a calculator FRQ, make sure you're writing down on your page. That is considered showing your work. Without that, they don't give you any points. Any justification, explanation more than a sentence is probably on the wrong track, and you don't have to simplify arithmetic. He claimed that one FRQ is always geometric graphs. We practiced a packet of 4 of those like 3 weeks ago. He claimed that one FRQ is always a rate in, rate out. That's what we practiced last class. That's the FRQ we did together, and then I printed an optional one on the back. We're going to do something similar today, just not those topics. Always round to 3 decimal places. And if an FRQ says that a function is differentiable, just go ahead and write down that that means it's also continuous. If it's not needed, it only takes you 5 seconds, and if it is needed, sometimes that's a point or 2 hidden behind those. Okay, I also asked you guys for some reasons on why you care to pass the AP exam, partly because I'm a little bit interested in what y'all think, and then I wanted to see if there was any big ones that you missed that I would share with you before the AP exam, and so I put those on here. And I did the same thing with my 6th period, which is also calculus. So they did the last 2 or 3, I think. Did y'all do the Family's Disappointed in Me, or was that 6th period?
It was us.
That was, okay. College will be easier, and bragging rights. Anything else you want to add to that? Okay. I can think of at least one more, but it's okay. Okay, so our structure of class today is going to be pretty similar, where I want us to put in a good full effort on one FRQ. So this is one of the handouts you guys picked up. So to be clear, just like last time, this is a different topic. The front is going to be required because I'm going to give you class time to do it, and the back is a similar type that will be optional, at least temporarily. I may give you some class time in the future to do it. But to make sure you're doing the correct one, I'm going to ask that you do the 2008 FRQ 4. Now, unlike the one that we did last class, that was the rate in, rate out type of question. And unlike the packet of 4 that we started with weeks ago, that were the geometric area type of question, these are referred to as linear motion. So something relating position, velocity, acceleration. How do you know if something's speeding up or slowing down? When is it moving to the left? When is it moving to the right? That's what's referred to as the particle motion or linear motion. So on our AP survival guide, that big packet I gave to you guys that didn't have any work to be done on there, there was that one page that has all of these written out. So just like the other types we've been doing, after we practice this one, if you realize that this is a weakness of yours, you need to see that they asked this in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, and 17. You need to expect some sort of FRQ like this. So if you really struggle with this one, you might want to do the back practice one on your own time. And then if you still feel like it would be beneficial to you to practice more, you know where to find those from this handout. So this is a no calculator FRQ. So, and this one does have the average score. I put it in the top right there. So about 2.6. So let's try to aim for 4 or 5. Okay, and I started the timer. So as always, please put in your best effort for 15 minutes. thumbs up. So it looked like that one seemed a little bit shorter, but I still give you your 15 minutes. So the main thing I really hope you get out of that is if you find out that you made some careless mistakes, but you had quit early, then that's the thing you would want to avoid in the future. So let's look at the scoring. Part A has 3 points. So somewhere in your work, if you showed that you tried t equals 3 as a possibility, you get a point. If you considered the area from 0 to 6 in some way, that's a point. Now I did it as a table, so I had like 6, -9, so I didn't write it out the same way, but I still showed the same work. You don't have to write it the same way. And for the last point in part A, it was the furthest left at t equals 3, and oh, I missed this part. It said find the position and the time. So I really should have also said it was at -10. That was in my table, but I needed to say it. So any questions about the scoring of A?
Yeah, why was it 10? Where did the -2?
Where did the -10 come from?
The -2.
That was the starting value. At t equals 0, the particle is at -2. So that was the starting value, and then the area under the curve tells you how it changes. So sometimes, and again, we can go more in depth on the math, but when I'm reading this stuff and there's a lot of information and I don't want to have to reread this, sometimes I say, like right here at the start, the value is -2, and then they gave you these areas like this, and I don't even know if I'm going to need them, but it just takes me a second. If the value here is -2 and it goes down 8, I knew this was -10, then it increased by 3, and then it went down by 2. So again, sometimes you don't need all of those, but those are the values at some of the important parts. Furthest left guy was there. His location was -10. Okay, then part B, probably the hardest of the justifications. You needed to, I don't remember this one. For how many values is particle x equals -8? Conclusion, there was 3 values where the position was -8. You needed to consider the positions at t equals 3, 5, and 6. And I guess this would be more like your justification. So again, you don't have to write it out the same way that they did, but basically what I just did in here in about 5 seconds. If this value was -2 and this value was -10 and this is continuous and differentiable, then somewhere in there it had a value of -6. It doesn't just go from a value of -2 to -10 without heading -6. Likewise, or -8, sorry, -8. Somewhere in there there's a value of -8. And then if the value is -10 here and the value is -7 here, then somewhere in there there's a value of -8. And if the value here was -7 and the value here was -9, then somewhere in here there's a value of -8. 3 times. Now how you want to say that or justify that is probably different than the way they did it, but you really need to justify it correctly, say that there was 3 values to get the last point, justify it correctly to get the second point, and if you refer to where the position would be at t equals 3, 5, and 6, then you could get the first point. You need to be looking at the positions to know if it could have a position of -8. Okay. Is that enough for that? Okay, then part C. Is the speed of the particle increasing or decreasing? Well, if you plug in, or if you look between 2 and 3, velocity was negative, which is not enough to know that it's decreasing. Remember, that means it's going to the left or down. But you also, v is increasing. That's another way to say that the acceleration was positive. Remember, for your speed to be increasing, the signs have to be the same. If velocity is negative, acceleration has to be negative for it to be increasing. Or velocity could be positive and acceleration could be positive. But the signs were different, so the speed was decreasing. So, 1 point for the reason, or for the answer, but you also have to have justification to get that point. And then finally, acceleration was negative between 0 and 1 and 4 and 6, and that was because velocity was decreasing there. Acceleration is the derivative of velocity, and derivative just means slope. So when the slope of velocity is going down, acceleration is negative. So 2 points there. One if you gave both of these intervals, and then 1 point if you justified why. All right, is that okay? Anything I want to ask about that? So was that easier one? Y'all were acting like it was easier, but then I don't know, once y'all saw the grading of it, you might have changed your mind. You got better than a 2.6? Okay, good. But again, even if you're above that, that's great. I'm happy for you. But still try to find a point or two if you saw a similar part that you could get next time. I know trying to get all 9 every single time is very hard, but trying to get 1 or 2 more points will pay off. So, okay, so next up, let's go ahead and move on to your other handout. So if you guys would take just a minute and look through that. This is going to be topics that will be on the AP exam too. I think these topics are a little bit easier than the topics that were on part 1, but some of this stuff we don't use often. So like we did last time, I want to kind of go over some parts of each one, and then there's a few questions I'd like you to go back and do for some practice. There's not many questions in there, but you're welcome to start looking at the questions real quick. I need just 2 seconds here. And I said this at the start of class, but just to say that again, the mini quiz that I'll make up for tomorrow, I'll have 1 question from topics that will be on the AP exam part 1 and 1 question that'll be from part 2. So 1 of these topics. Okay, so part 2, chain rule. Chain rule is one of the single most important things that we did. The same workshop that I've been referring to on that orange slideshow, the same person who did that told me that approximately 25% of the points on the AP exam involve chain rule. And while that may seem high, you have to understand that implicit differentiation is a type of chain rule, and related rates are a type of chain rule. So, and of course we have other stuff too. Okay, you definitely need to know how the formula for quotient rule. So if you want to take the derivative something over something, you need to make sure that you remember this formula. Take the derivative of the numerator with the denominator left alone, and then minus, do it the other way, and then the most forgotten part, it's all over the denominator squared. So you don't have to write it like this, but this is kind of a quick way to do that. Okay, likewise, product rule. If you want to take the derivative of something times something, unless one of them is a constant, in which case we can do some shortcuts, you need to take the derivative of one of them with the other one left alone, and then plus the other way. Now in this one, the order doesn't really matter because it's addition. 5 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 5. Up here, the order matters because subtraction. So again, I feel like you guys probably remember that, but I'm just warning you, if you don't, now is the time to learn it. Okay, anything y'all want to ask about that? If you feel like you need to practice those, I put the quick little links over there to make it as convenient for you as possible. Okay, you also need to know the equation for point slope of a line. So let's go ahead and write that down, and then it is getting close to our lunch break. So anytime you need to write the equation of a line, point slope is what you should start with. And we'll come back and finish off the notes part of this. I will share with you the answers that I got on the practice questions, and then I'll ask you to practice that and then go back to your U substitution circuit from Alright, looks like we're all back, so let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. So last thing we were looking at was making sure that you can write the equation of a line, and starting with point slope form. Usually the way that you're going to find the y value for the point is to plug in x into the function and solve for y, just like you do with all points. So usually you're told the x value, you need to be told where it is, plug it into the function to get the y value, and then to get the slope, you would plug it in to its derivative. Derivative is how you get slope. So finish copying down those notes, and here in just a minute I'm going to ask you to try the few questions that we're skipping. But like last class, I'm going to share my answers with you so that you know if you need to ask some questions or if you need to retry them. That one's should be A in the end. Okay, I'm going move on. But I can take more questions when we finish this handout. Okay, you certainly need to know when a function is increasing, decreasing, concave up, and concave down. So increasing is when the derivative is positive. Decreasing is when it's negative. Again, derivative is like slope. So if slope is positive, it's going up. If slope is negative, it's going down. Same thing with derivative. Whereas concave upward and downwards were the second derivative ones. Second derivative's positive, you get concave upward. Second derivative's negative is concave downward. And then the question 22 below it wants you to try to figure out where that would be increasing without a calculator, of course, because you could just graph it in your calculator. And when you try that one, make sure that you get an answer of C, or please ask for some help. Again, I think you guys know most of this stuff. I'm just trying to make sure that you're aware it's going to be on your AP test multiple times. So now is the time to learn it, if you don't. Okay, on to the back page. Oh, there's another one about concavity here. This was a piece from an FRQ. So work that one and make sure that you get this answer. -5 to 4 and 1 to 2. I missed that the first time I did it today because I didn't read the full question. Make sure you read the whole thing before you think your answer is correct or not. And then there's one multiple choice. Number 4, that one should be E. Okay, after that, talking about critical numbers / critical points. So these occur when the first derivative is 0 or the first derivative is undefined. And most of the time we're asked to find critical points. Sometimes you're just going to be flat out asked, how many critical points does it have? Or where are the critical points? Or where are the critical numbers? But what makes them useful and why they're such a big deal is this helps you find extrema. Relative maxes and mins. Because critical numbers don't have to be extrema, but extrema have to be at critical points. So when you try that with 23, you should get C. And when you try it with number 80, you should get B. Now, based on this question number here, this tells me that you are allowed to use a calculator. So that should make that a lot easier. That would be pretty hard to do by hand. And then last piece for our notes, and then I'll give you time to try these, is inflection points. So to be able to find an inflection point, you have to know when they would occur. So it's like the critical numbers, but critical numbers deal with first derivative, inflection points deal with second derivative. So when the second derivative is 0 or undefined, you may have a critical point. So since it's one of these two, you're going to have to find the second derivative. And then solve it to figure out where it equals 0 or where it's undefined. That tells you where, and then usually we do like this little number line thing. Test values around it so that you can see the concavity. And of course, I can go more in detail if you need me to, but you may not realize you need me to until you try those. So last one of those, this was a non-calculator question. This would be B is the one you should get there. Again, all of those are real released questions. I don't know what year they went with. It may have come from several different years. But there's only 2 questions for you to do on the front, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions for you to do on the back. So please do those 7. And make sure that all of that is clicking with you. And if not, make sure you ask while you're still here. You've got about 32 minutes. I will tomorrow pick up 129 and 131. So you should have been anticipating turning in 129 today. But I will also ask for 131 tomorrow. And again, your mini quiz will have one question like this. So the question might be a chain rule question, quotient rule question, product rule, writing the equation of a line, something to do with increasing, decreasing, something to do with critical numbers, or something to do with inflection points. Just one though. Okay, so do that first please, and then if you finish that early and you've got more than a couple minutes, then please try to do a couple questions from the 127 U substitution circuit. That's the one you've had for a while, and I've been trying to give you some time to work on it. But,
Do we have to do this one?
okay,
What's the last one? Do we have to do this paper too?
June,
Are
are
you
you
gonna
okay?
go with the one?
Listen. I don't know. Why do I not have the second page?
We don't have to go over it. I'm just asking.
I don't know. Give me a minute. I don't know why I don't have that. No, I mean, we'll not worry about it today. We'll finish it tomorrow. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, but I don't know why I don't have it though. And I'll be sure not to pick a mini quiz question from this last page since we didn't go over it. again, obviously on all of these topics, I'm not trying to get you to go real in-depth on any of them. With how much class time we have left before your AP exam, obviously we can't just go in-depth on everything, so by just giving you a small taste of all the important stuff, or a lot of the important stuff, I'm just trying to help you see what you might actually need to go back and practice some more. But of course, while you're in here, I can help that process, so. Anything I can help with, yeah? Did I already have to? You know, I got some nice calculators up there.
Yeah, it's just simple, like addition and subtraction, is it?
You try to fit mine real quick. Does anybody know if they have any AP tests next Tuesday? What is next Tuesday?
That's my AP Environmental Science.
Environmental science, so that's probably several of you then. Okay, and then Thursday is, I think, one of the history ones. Does anybody know that?
History, I think, is a Friday.
Well, there's more than one history though. Does anyone know they have an AP test next Thursday?
I have one, but it might get changed. I'm supposed to have physics, but I might do the makeup because I'm supposed to have soccer state.
Oh, okay.
It's in 2 Thursdays though.
Oh wait, never mind.
It looks like
The AP World one is in 2 Thursdays. It's 2 weeks from today.
next Thursday is human geography, but that's 9th graders only, I think. Macroeconomics. Nobody's doing macro? And statistics. I think that's Thomas. Nobody else is doing AP statistics? The calculus test is usually the first Monday of AP testing, so I like that a lot better than week 2, but I guess it does give you more study time.
The AP Go one is the first. Is like the first day. No. It's the first one on the first day.
Do you look at the easiest ones first?
I don't know their reasoning behind how they do it.
AP Chem is also on the first.
Oh yeah, chemistry is the afternoon. Well, for those of you that have AP chemistry, I guess it'll be good that there's some time between ours and that one, since I'm sure you need to study for both. And I don't think it's going to matter too much here, But I haven't had to say this in a while because we haven't had a test in a while. So just like our late work policy all year has been, you can get late points up until the day of a test. And we were much more flexible with you on the last test because it was in Delta Math. But if you have anything from the last unit / AP review, if you want to call that a unit, so that would be handouts 100 and on in your binder. If you have any of those that you didn't get a grade for because you didn't do it the first time, or any of them that you got partial credit on that you want to go back and finish, I will still accept those, but only up until the day of the AP test. Once the AP test hits, I'm not going to take that late work anymore. I want you to do it before the AP test. So if that applies to you, just make sure that you get those done and turn them in before. Especially if you think you're close from one grade to the next. If you wait till after, not gonna take them. I want them before, and I won't know if you did them before or not. Thomas, do you know when your AP Stat test is?
I think it's next Thursday.
So you'll miss this class
Okay.
that day. You're the only one in here doing AP Stat. I can't. It's very surprising. Usually there's a few people who do both. You even have a nice calculator. But that's not a calculator question though. What? How much do you need help with?
Putting in -1/3. I don't do this all wrong before.
That was kind of funny.
Well, it's we don't have 7 and then different
Sure, it looks okay. Equals 0. Factor that in 2x. Okay, so I'm with you to here. And when you're solving this, how do you take the square root of the negative number? Okay, but imaginary is not going to show up on the graph. And a graph visual, if you care about where it's going up or down, so that's not really a critical number. So you didn't need to test around there at all.
So just 0.
Well, 0 was the only critical number, but you still needed to test around there to see.
So it's from 0 to
Yeah, and that's what I got. So you're still on the right track. It's just that you were testing more than you needed to.
How'd your FR2 go today?
Not three, yeah.
Good as 3?
No, it's average. Average.
Okay.
Some people would read a script and just read off of what's on the
What if you get above average on half of them and below average on half of them?
Then it's average.
Average. Which is pretty okay.
Which is a 3. Right?
Yeah.
Depends on how you do on multiple choice.
I'm passing.
guys have only about 3 minutes at this point. I did go ahead and open up 131 in Google Classroom, but you probably should not turn that in yet since we still need to do the last page tomorrow. So